Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Oceana Student Center on the campus of Colorado State University, Pueblo. My name is Timothy Mote. I'm the president of the university, and on behalf of the faculty, staff, and students at the university, we're delighted to have all of you with us tonight for this gubernatorial debate. Tonight we're taking part in obviously a debate but this is how we practice democracy in this country. From its very beginning, the debate has been the cornerstone of the hard work that we do in this country. So we're delighted to have all of you with us tonight. Our moderator for this evening's debate is Mr. Steve Henson, who is the editor of The Chieftain. Steve has been with the Pueblo Chieftain since 1978, serving as a reporter, and has worked his way up through the ranks, serving numerous roles at the Pueblo Chieftain, and we're honored to have him tonight as the moderator for this evening's debate. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Mr. Steve Henson.
Good evening, everyone. It's so nice to have you all here in this beautiful remodeled ballroom here at the Student Center. Thank you, Dr. Mote, for hosting us this evening. We are working with the university, the Chieftain is, along with Pueblo Community College's Center for New Media and the 2020 Commission to host the debate tonight for Governor of Colorado. This is an extremely important debate, as all of them are for every office. And let's go over a little bit of the rules and some of the protocols we expect tonight. Each candidate will have 4 minutes to introduce himself to you. Not that they need necessarily an introduction, but to explain why they're running for office and to ask for your vote. After the introductions, we'll do a series of questions and answers. We will not be taking questions from the audience. We've, through the years, have had many bad experiences doing that, as you might expect. It's a different time. I mean, let's face it, it's a very volatile time in politics, and we're not going to let somebody have the opportunity to ambush one of the candidates. And so the questions have been prepared by the reporters and the editors and the editorial board of the Pueblo Chieftain. And after a series of these questions, 45, 50 minutes into the event, then we'll stop and then we'll do closing remarks from each candidate. So that's the rules for the candidates. Now the rules for you and me. As I said, this is an extremely volatile time in our politics, a lot of polarization. And so I want to make sure that tonight that we appreciate how lucky we are to live in a democracy and how lucky we are to openly debate ideas. And it's in the spirit of that we'd ask you, if you don't like what one of the candidates says, please don't boo and hiss and offer your opinion on what he should have said. You certainly have the opportunity to take out petitions or go to the assembly and run for office yourself if you're so inclined. These are the two people who have sacrificed their lives and their time and are willing to serve us. They deserve our respect, and I'm going to insist on it. Now, having said that, hoop and holler all you want for your candidate. If they say something that you like and you want to support them, do it. That's great. But none of the negative stuff. So, I know that sounds like a lecture, and I'm sorry, but it's just the times that we're in. Okay, we flipped a coin, and Mr. Polis won that. He elected to close the event tonight, so we'll now have opening remarks from Walker Stapleton.
Well, thank you very much for having me here on the campus of CSU Pueblo, home of the Thunder Wolves. 2014 was too long ago. I think we need another season just like it, and I'm happy to be back here in Pueblo, the current and permanent home of the Colorado State Fair, with my wife Jenna. She got a night off from running after our 3 children. Craig is 10, Coco is 7, and Olivia is 4. I'm running for governor for them and for all of our future generations in Colorado to make sure that we have abundant economic opportunities in the future. As Treasurer of Colorado, I've been privileged to work with Democrats on all the important economic policy issues and battles that we've fought. We haven't always agreed, but we made a lot of progress. I've worked to keep more dollars in the classroom. I led the effort a few years ago to stop a $1 billion tax increase because the money would not have gotten into the classroom to improve student-teacher ratios. I joined up with Governor Bill Ritter just 2 years ago to defeat a terrible public policy idea for a state-run healthcare system because the associated payroll taxes would have bankrupted the state of Colorado. I passed sweeping debt consolidation across 16 of our state agencies to increase the accountability and the transparency for taxpayers when debt is issued from Colorado. I know we can solve our challenges in Colorado, and I know we can do it together. It's one of the reasons why I was one of the earliest supporters of the President's tax plan last November, because more than 70% of Coloradans have benefited. Because if you make $60,000, your tax bill has gone from $1,700 to $100, because it repealed the individual mandate for health insurance. We had nearly 150,000 Coloradans last year pay a tax because they couldn't afford health insurance. Out of that group of Coloradans, 80% have a household income of $50,000 or less, because economists have said it will bring $4 billion of positive economic growth to the state of Colorado over the next 5 years, because it has created more than 120 economic opportunity zones. I have supported energy plans that respect the fact that the energy industry provides 230,000 jobs and more than $32 billion of annual economic impact to Colorado. It is inextricably linked to school finance. It provides close to $1 billion to our schools. It is inextricably linked to our water system. The largest recurring revenue source for water conservation in Colorado is because of severance taxes through our Department of Natural Resources. It provides vital city funding for the future in Colorado, and we need to make sure it's sustainable and protected. But none of these things are going to be possible if Congressman Polis becomes the next governor. The reason is because Congressman Polis represents the most radical extreme candidate in Colorado's history, and here is why. Congressman Polis will sit here tonight and he will promise everything from free health care to free education to 100% renewable standards for energy. But I'm here tonight to tell you that free is really expensive. And the more loose a government's budget becomes, the tighter your household budget becomes. Because here's what happens. When an energy mandate of renewables can't be reached, and most energy experts say it can't, the cost actually gets passed on to the consumer. Puebloans have already seen the price of energy increase unfairly. They do not need to be paying more out of their pockets for wind and solar mandates. That's not compassionate, it's cruel. And he has already said that he will pay for a universal health care system through a payroll tax increase. Well, 2 years ago with Governor Ritter, that payroll tax increase was 10%. Every business from Pizza Hut to Taco Bell to every business that we count on will leave Colorado by the thousands, and it will cost you your job. Jared Polis will threaten and jeopardize Coloradans' way of life, and I don't want it for my children or future generations or yours. And that's why I'm running for governor tonight, for a hopeful, inclusive vision of economic opportunities that benefits all of us. Thank you.
We'll now have opening remarks from Jared Polis.
Well, it's exciting to be here at CSU, and I'm just so excited because we have a strong tradition in Pueblo of just this great down and dirty grassroots politics, and frankly, I'm all excited you're here tonight because I know you're very busy with the mayor's race. For those of you who live in Pueblo, about 18 people running. I think you had a congressional debate here on this very stage not too long ago. So thank you for coming out tonight. Particular thanks, I know there's not many of you, but particular thanks to the students who are here. Really appreciate you taking the time to learn about the candidates. I'm Jared Polis, running for governor. I want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a Colorado native. My parents moved to Colorado in 1970. I was born a few years later. I'm an entrepreneur. I started a number of successful businesses and created hundreds of jobs. And I want to bring that same know-how to Southern Colorado for capital formation, for growing businesses, for creating jobs. And the businesses that I started, we help pay for our employees' health care, even in the lean years, in the tough years when we were losing money. So I know what it means to meet payroll, know what it means to create jobs, and that's an important experience to have at the state level. I served 6 years on the State Board of Education. I worked closely with Pueblo 60 and 70. I have a lot of good friends from the early 2000s from that time. And then I went on to apply the entrepreneurial spirit to the education sector, where I started a couple charter schools in Thornton, Aurora, and Lakewood, New America School, also now in Las Cruces and Albuquerque, working with English language learners and 16 to 21-year-olds to help them get their high school degree. Earlier today, I was at Pueblo Community College talking about how it's so important for young people to have access to the skills they need to succeed in a 21st century economy, right? For some, it's about a 4-year college. It's about CSU or CU or UNC. For others, it's about a community college. And for others, it's about getting a skill or a trade in high school that allows them to not just get by, but thrive and support themselves in their families. It's also important to note that education starts early. It's important to get a strong start for all kids. And you know what? In our state, we only have half-day kindergarten for every kid. Now, if you're very low income, you might get one of those coveted preschool slots. You might get full-day kindergarten. If you're wealthy like Walker or I, you can afford preschool or kindergarten for our kids. They've had it. But you know what? For the middle class, can't afford it, doesn't get it free. Like so many things, the middle class has been left behind. Not only are preschool and kindergarten the most important years educationally, but it's also a real-life cost of living issue for young families. I know that the age skews a little older in this group, but you all know some young families struggling with the high cost of childcare. I was just talking to a fellow community college student earlier today with a 5-year-old and a 10-month-old struggling to get her degree because she can't afford the high cost of childcare and has to work 2 jobs. So this is about opportunity. And you know what? What Walker's idea of radical, I can tell you Oklahoma has free preschool and kindergarten for every kid. And if they can do it in Oklahoma, we can do it in Colorado. And you know what? We can apply to pay for it. In addition to additional funds from the general fund, we want to use public-private partnerships like Westminster School District has done through social impact bonds or pay-for-performance, because it turns out over time, preschool and kindergarten pay for themselves in savings with lower special education rates, lower grade repetition rates, which cost the whole state and district a whole nother year. And you know what? We can do better than a 4-day school week. We can do better than half-day kindergarten. If you let me as governor, we will do better as a state. Thank you.
Here, we'll now begin the questions and answer portions, and Mr. Stapleton, you'll ask first. Colorado's roads, bridges, and transportation infrastructure need work throughout the state, not just in the Denver area or the I-70 corridor. How will you help us get better highways and transportation in southern Colorado?
We need a transportation system that puts Colorado first, and it's why it is going to be my #1 priority as governor. Not just I-70, but I-25 all the way down here to Pueblo form the nerve center of our 21st century transportation system that we must have. But it's not just funding infrastructure, it's also providing attainable housing. And I say attainable because what may be affordable for somebody in the metro area may not be attainable for somebody in Pueblo or the Western Slope. Both of them are inextricably linked to have the economic future all of us want to have in Colorado, and it's why it would be one of my priorities in the budget. It's why we have dedicated sources of revenue in the general fund that we've talked about for transportation in the future. But we are not going to be able to pay for our roads if Congressman Polis is elected, because he has promised $90 billion worth of spending. Our state budget is $30 billion. If you are going to triple the size of the state government, that equals empty government promise. That equals more debt on the Coloradans that can least afford it. The only way to pay for $90 billion worth of promises, which he has not explained how he's going to pay for, is to either jack your personal income taxes through the ballot, and we have TABOR as a limited defense mechanism for now, or to bleed it out of the business community in the form of regulations and fees. The emission standards that he supports, the California emission standards, would raise the average cost of an automobile in Colorado by 2022 by $5,000 per car. That is not the economic future I want for the state of Colorado. We have to be fiscally responsible with taxpayer money, and we need to prioritize transportation and affordable housing. But in order to do it, we need a Colorado economy that will provide jobs, not take jobs away with empty promises of free.
Mr. Polis?
You know, you hear Walker say Jared Polis even more than I do. You will occasionally hear me contrast my opinions with his. But I'm here to tell you why I'm running for governor and the plans I have for our state to do something about traffic. When Walker said we need to look at our infrastructure, quote, all the way down to Pueblo, you don't need to be reminded that we got a good third of Colorado south of Pueblo too. When I was in Trinidad a couple weeks ago, it's exciting to see the economic revitalization and jobs from the special arts district they have, from cannabis, whatever you think of it, it's a big part of their revenue. And it's exciting to see that kind of economic development. Look, we have real needs in southern Colorado, and I've worked to deliver as part of the federal transportation bill, worked with Scott Tipton to establish Highway 70 all the way from Eagle County out to Utah as a high priority freight corridor, opening up additional federal funding. Of course, I've worked in the district, I've represented northern Colorado for funding for 25 North, as well as the Highway 36 project. I see my friend Benita Duran is here, and her mother, of course, is a great Pueblo resident, and she travels that area regularly. So I take that experience of working with a coalition of Republicans and Democrats and the business community to help make sure we meet the transportation and infrastructure needs of our state, not only where we are today, but where we'll be in 10 years. We need to do something, of course, and complete the project at the Gap, north of Colorado Springs. I know there's some folks from up in Colorado Springs here today. And we need to also continue the work that Commissioner Sal Pace and others have done to look at the ability to do front range rail, connecting our communities up and down the front range. I'll also note that I work with Senator Fremont in New Mexico on Super Chief and making sure that we retain our existing rail infrastructure we have and continue to make sure that rail is a dynamic part of not only job creation in Pueblo, but yes, moving people across the front range.
My rebuttal is, that sounds really cool. How do you pay for it? Congressman Polis has talked about solar-powered motorcycles. He's talked about a Hyperloop. The fact is, the Hyperloop has only worked at the ATM drive-thru. It has never worked beyond that. And I love to do a lot of these things. I love to provide. I actually worked, Congressman, on Pay for Success with Mike Johnson in the state Senate. Got it through. Republican-controlled Senate. I know he's a Democrat, he's supporting you, so I'll take that point away. But I actually work on things where we have accountability for the dollars that we spend. And I'm not going to make empty promises because I know as a treasurer that the only way to pay for that is to jack up personal income taxes and make the lives of people who can least afford it harder. And that's the empty promise that you're offering tonight. From transportation to education to healthcare, we can fix all of these things. I've talked about a detailed plan to fix our roads, and I have the money to do it. I've talked about improving access and affordability to health care and making sure that Medicaid is sustainable for vets and for young people, because 50% of Medicaid are kids. But we're not going to do it if we bankrupt Colorado in the process. We have enough empty government promises. Thank you.
You know, listening to Walker is such a Debbie Downer. Like, no, we can't do this. Here's why we can't do that. Listen, the reason I bring public service, my motto when I first read it was dream, dare, do. That's what I believe in. And yes, if humanity can achieve a Hyperloop, I want to make darn sure we have it here in Colorado to get Denver to Pueblo in 9 minutes. And if it doesn't work by the way, we're not going to build it. Look, we got to think big here, folks. We're Coloradans. We love this state. We want to be in the forefront of the future. The flood transportation, which is 109 on the ballot, will put our state more than $3 billion in debt without a dime in new revenue, draining money out of our schools, making the 4-day week permanent. If that's a plan to pay for it, I have to say I think we can do better. We'll build a winning coalition with Republicans and Democrats in the business community to make sure that we make the future and that we make technology work for us rather than always trying to catch up.
Mr. Polis, you'll answer this question first. You've made providing affordable health care a centerpiece of your campaign. How can you make insurance less expensive while covering more people?
So I think that's one of the most important issues in this campaign, because all of the opportunity to save you money on health care will likely be at the state level. I've met payroll, I've provided benefits, and as I listen to small businesses across the state, this is almost always one of the first or second things out of their mouth. What can you do to reduce costs on business? Well, there's a lot we can do. Number one, we can save money on prescription drugs. You know what? Coloradans are getting ripped off, and I'm sick and tired of it. In our country, we're paying 5 to 8 times as much for the exact same prescription drug available in Canada or Mexico or Germany. Insulin's gone up over 1,000% in the last 15 years, and it's basically the same product. EpiPen, $450 here, $50 in Canada. You know what? We're sick and tired of that. So we're going to do everything we can within our arsenal to do something about it. Laws to prevent price gouging for prescription drug companies. We'll use our buying power through Medicaid and hopefully in collaboration with other Western states to negotiate better prescription drug pricing and open up reimportation from other countries. This will drive down rates. My North Star on healthcare, if you wonder what principles will Jared Polis make decisions on healthcare, if it reduces costs, expands coverage, and maintains or improves quality, then I'm for it. Good ideas from the left and the right, like expanding the scope of care, because you know what, there's nurse practitioners and there's nurses that can do some of the procedures and things that are only compensated for doctors today. We can save money for Medicaid and private insurers, pass the savings along to you. If you give me the chance to be governor, I'm willing to take on the special interest to save you money on health care, expand coverage with the goal of achieving universal care here in Colorado, like every other industrialized nation does.
And I'm going to work hard to do
that. Congressman Polis, there's a 36-year-old mother who is a teacher at Pueblo West High School here, who I know, and she was diagnosed a few weeks ago with stage 4 lung and brain cancer. She goes to UC Health to get treatment. She would not be able to get the life-saving drugs under your plan. She would wait in lines, and she would ultimately die. And that is not a compassionate healthcare system, it is cruel. And 2 years ago, I joined forces with the Democratic governor of Colorado to defeat state-run healthcare because we knew that it would result in double-digit payroll increases, because we knew that it would result in longer lines, because we knew that it would result in less quality care for the people who can least afford it. We knew that it would result in VA-style care and people would wait months upon months for critical care and treatment. That is not a compassionate system, it is a cruel system. You talk a lot about drug transparency. My lieutenant governor passed the first emergency room transparency for billing in the healthcare system in Colorado, and we should take that model throughout Colorado. But your idea of Canada, which serves 30 million people, being the drug cabinet for Colorado, that was tried years ago in Vermont, and it has never been enacted. It's an empty promise. You know as well as I do, being a congressman, that Canada would never agree to it, and the United States. So it's just an empty sales pitch. And here's how pragmatic you are. After a decade in Congress, you passed a whole 2 bills with your name on it. And you voted last session with Nancy Pelosi 94% of the time. Colorado needs a governor that's more than 6% bipartisan. We've come out with a plan to improve access and affordability, to invest in mental health, and not to bankrupt Colorado with empty healthcare promises that we have no ability to deliver on. Thank you.
So as Walker knows, I also did not support Amendment 69, which he keeps referencing. That was not my plan. It wouldn't have saved
more expensive,
and I didn't support it. To the teacher that you referenced in the audience, my heart goes out to you. I'm not sure where you are. You'll be in my thoughts and prayers. And of course, as a teacher, you have health care coverage. I was proud to choose as my running mate Diane Primavera, who is the executive director of the Susan G. Komen Foundation, a patient advocate, and a 3-time cancer survivor herself, who went through a divorce and losing her coverage while she was fighting her cancer. We want to give voice to those, because people shouldn't worry about losing their home. You shouldn't worry about when you lose your job, losing your health care. Small businesses need relief from the high cost of health care, and we're going to work every day to get that done. I was rated as the most effective member of Congress from the Colorado delegation, more effective than your member, Scott Tipton, Center for Legislative Studies. I also disagree with my own party more than the other Democrats from Colorado and Promoter Diana Gate, also thoughtful people. But I'm willing to work with everybody and build bipartisan coalitions to get things done, and I'll look forward to doing the same as governor.
Empty government promise. 2 years ago, the plan that Bill Ritter and I defeated was going to cost $30 billion, our entire budget. This is why Congressman Polis is so radical and so extreme, and why he will endanger Colorado and jeopardize our health care like never before, because it's only become more expensive. I would love to offer universal care. How are we going to pay for it, Congressman? Please explain how we are going to pay for it. There is no way to pay for it. I want to make sure that what we have right now, Medicaid, is sustainable for the most vulnerable among us, our kids. I want to work with the people on the front lines, from UC Health, from Denver Health, who are involved in Medicaid expansion. I want to work with doctors and nurse practitioners. You want to take doctors from rural areas by paying them less. We're already having a critical shortage of doctors. This is not compassionate, it is cruel. It is an empty government promise that will be taken out on the Coloradans that can least afford it, who will wait longer for less quality care, and if they have a critical, life-saving illness, or life-threatening illness, they won't be able to get drugs that will save their lives, and they will end up dying. And that's not the future that I want for my kids or any kids in Colorado. And I'm willing to fight to stop it.
Mr. Stapleton, you'll answer this one first. Some of the TV ads against you have painted you as being linked to President Trump. Is that a fair characterization? And what is your opinion of the president's time in office?
Well, I've said all along that I will continue to support President Trump on beneficial economic policies. It's why I endorse the tax plan. And the 126 regional economic opportunity districts, many of which are here in Pueblo. I didn't enter federal legislation like Congressman Polis to repeal them. It's why I have said that I welcome immigrants and that I will support dreamers as governor of Colorado, but I'm not for sanctuary cities. And I define sanctuary cities narrowly to be people that have entered this country illegally and committed a felony. And we should have a policy that if somebody has entered the country illegally and committed a felony, that sheriffs and DAs who are simply trying